Hey, beautiful people. Morning. Um, I'm about to start my day, and I've been waiting for the opportune time to do this video for probably the last week or two. Um, because someone special in my life has just been like resting on my mind. Um, anyway, like the title says, um, I learned some really, really valuable lessons from my father. And by the way, shout out to all the men who, not just take care of their children, um, but teach their children and are involved with them on a daily basis and try to educate them and impart their experiences and and a positive worldview onto their children, right? The men who are involved on a daily basis with the keep and care of their children to teach them manhood and respect and grace and dignity. And those are some of the things that I learned from my father. Okay, so who is my dad? Well, number one is, who is daddy not? um he is a very interesting character, and when I was growing up, he just exuded this like, I want to know more about you. Who are you? Like, how how did you come here? And I used to ask him all kinds of questions like, how old are you? Where do you come from? Where did you live? What are your parents' names? So interviewing was very natural for me, but it started with him. And, I made like a whole list of, of things that I wanted to talk about so I wouldn't get sidetracked. So I'm going to make a part two to this. So, um, I'm going to talk about a little bit about our relationship so you understand. My father was very hands-on with my keep and care and grooming and development, and not just mine, but with the rest of the children. But my position in the family is was very vulnerable, because I had sisters, and then I had a whole block of brothers, three brothers, and then me. So I'm not just the last child in the marriage. I am the last girl. And my parents split up when I was about 7 years old. And my mom left and went to the United States. And she left me with my three brothers and my dad. So he was very protective of me and very caring towards, developing, you know, uh, trust, womanhood, and I would say he was just very protective to make sure that I was getting the things that I needed as a girl growing up in a house full of men. And but prior to that, he and I have always had a good relationship, from the time I was small, whereas the other children would be afraid of him because he was very disciplinarian. I would, just navigate him in a specific way, because for me it was, he doesn't like certain things. Just don't do it. Don't do the stuff that will get you slapped. Don't do it. Don't do the stuff that will get you put in a corner. Don't do this. Just don't do the stuff that he doesn't like. Okay. And he's telling you not to do it for a reason. And these are older children. So me as the little one, I don't recall getting any kind of spankings or anything. So that fear of him wasn't really there. And the other thing we shared was I loved his music. He loved like like Prince Buster and reggae music. He said he wanted to be a trombonist at one point. And so he had this great collection of really, really good Jamaican vintage music. And I loved his music. What else? And oh, yes. So important is I could read before I could remember. So I do not recall, I am sure I wasn't born with a book, but I do not recall a point in my life where I could not read. Um, what what used to happen was I remember driving by like when I was a kid in the back seat of the car, we would drive by the billboard signs and I would try to sound out the words in my head. And this is the benefit of having older children in the house because my brothers were at the age where my mom was teaching them how to read. And so I was able to pick up. And by the time I was like 4, I could read. And um, so my older siblings um, were not yet at the same pace I was. And my father, we used to read the newspaper together. So he would give me something to read and I would read it for him, or he would give me the comics. So we had a lot to bond over, and he used to kind of fostered that sense of you're doing something that other people are not doing, but I want you to the best for you. And so he used to say stuff like if I said something or if I, did something that wasn't right, he would say, "You're better than that," or, "You're smarter than that," or, you can do better. You don't have to do it like that, you know? And he was very civil, but a very civil, very gentle soul, but do not get him out. I have seen him out. You don't want him out. You don't want him. What was it? When Jamaican people say get out, that mean someone to get out of character. Okay, in his out of character, he is as gentle as he is on the top. He is like this on the bottom. Don't cross him. So that's the kind of character he was. He was a guy who was home every night by 6, hardworking, but he used to be, before my parents split up, he used to be like, this ongoing show that I wanted to keep watching. Like, where did he go? What did he do? How did he do this? Where did he learn that from? Daddy, daddy, daddy. So I was always up in his grill asking him all different kinds of stuff. One of the things that when I was about 5, I noticed that we owned the plot of land also next door to our house. So, we used to go over there and play in the land, play in the dirt. And when the men started to pour, the foundation in the land and started to build the house, is when I'm like, wait, like what are they doing? How do you build this house? How do you start this? How do you start that? And I would be over there with him just trying to watch and see and learn and understand what he was doing. And I asked him, how do we own these two pieces of land next door to each other? And the story he told me was so like, it was kind of like an eye opener. So back in those days in Jamaica, still, and it still happens now, and in some third world countries, things are not computerized, things are not, properly written on maps. So he had this plot of land that he wanted to build his house on, the house that I grew up in. And so, he built that house, and I grew up in that house up until, and I was like, and then they started construction on this house. And what he said was, when they started to build the house, when the house was almost finished, um, the owners of the land came from England to see their land, and it turns out that he was building his house almost finished on their land. And that would have been enough to take some people out. That to the when he told me the story, that took me out. So he owned the land next door, not the land that he was building on, and he had to come to terms with the actual property owner that this that he was going to buy the land. So he had to buy the land from under the house, and so now he owned these two plots of land next door to each other. um, and that kind of told me a little bit about his resilience and a little bit about his ability to overcome difficult situations, because that's difficult. Imagine you have a wife and you have, like, let me see, the you have a wife and 5 children, and you're about to finish your house that you've been trying to build for all these years, and you're going to move into this house, and somebody comes to tell you, well, that's not yours. And unfortunately, in the neighborhood, it's a nice neighborhood, and a lot of retirees from England, they had the same situation, but a lot of them, they came, and the mistake had happened with their plot of land, similar mistakes, and instead of soldiering through it, they left. Okay. And that was a very important lesson for me, was when you have struggles and problems, you soldier through them. You cannot just give up, especially when you have so much riding on you. So he had to do what he had to do to make sure that he could get the land from under the house. So now we have this second lot of land, which is the first lot that he should have built on. And so when I was 5, they started pouring foundation and started building and started to develop that land. And we had bags of cement and wood all over the place. And to see them, like, putting down the steel beams down into the earth, the foundation has to be dug 6 feet. The beams have to be poured all the way down, and then pushed all the way down, and then the cement and the gravel and the mixture, and just watching the whole thing. Like, I mean, 5, I've never seen a house built. So to me, it was the most beautiful thing to see that actually happen and come to life. And so in any event, while construction was happening on that house, I learned a lot about, building, and seeing him and understanding, like, workmen and what they do and how to do it. And, he wasn't just a guy who came from, like, nowhere and didn't know anything. As a matter of fact, both my grandfathers were very ingenious people. My father's father, he was in the Royal Air Force in the United Kingdom. He fought in World War II, and his airplane was shot down over Palestine. I actually do have someone who is working on a documentary who reached out to me about Jamaican fighter pilots. And so his story is going to be featured. And my mother's father, he was a great builder as well. He built all of his daughters a house. He had 5 daughters, and he wanted to make sure no men were going to abuse them. And the thing that Jamaican men do is they build their daughter a house first to make sure that they are protected, should in case something should happen to them. With a house, you can always rent it out, lease it out, and that's something else I learned from my dad. Was he told me that you should always build your house that can bring in income. Okay, you can't just build a house or live in a palace just so to say you have a palace. Your house should also have a means of bringing income to pay for itself, because you never know when you're going to have any kind of issues or life is going to jump up and bite you in the butt. Well, when my mom left when I was 7, life definitely jumped up and bit him in the butt. He lost next to everything. Okay, and I'll get into those details another day, because it's a point in my life that I never want to revisit. But it was a difficult situation. It was very tough. And he carried it with grace. It wasn't his fault. He carried it with grace. He carried it with dignity. He was clearly disturbed by what happened and the economic fallout of how it happened. And he what do you call it? He just soldiered on. And his mom, in Jamaican cultures and some cultures where my father's generations come from, they do have like a matrilineal culture where women, they inherit the land through their mothers. And so he inherited a lot of land from his grandmother. And so his mother, my grandmother, used to come from the countryside and bring produce off the land. So green bananas, yam, oranges, all of those things. Um, and it was a very tough time. And one of the things that my grandmother used to, every time she came and she brought produce, she would say, "Give me the girl. Let me take her and go and raise her, and let me take her into the country. You're spoiling here alone with all these boys," and blah, 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 blah. And my father would not let me go. He would not let me go. He used to say, um, she lost her mother, and you want her to lose her home and her father too. No. And he refused to let me go, and with my grandmother. And at that time, as a child, I understood that he understood what a child experiences, what a child's mind goes through, and I still get emotional. I don't want to cry. I'm not going to cry, you know? So he never let me go. And he did his best. He did his best to make sure that I knew who I was. And that's the important thing about him and where he comes from, is his sense of identity. He has this magnificent sense of who he is and who he is not. Okay? And if nothing, those are the things that he put into me: who I was and who I was not. And I tried, I try my best in life, no matter where I go: New York, Miami, England, no matter where I go, I never try to make that man feel that his work failed. I always live to his standard of dignity and respect for myself, because he knew who he was. And knowing who he was created a sense of, I would say, not errors, but just don't go below this line. Okay, it's okay for them to go below the line. It's okay for other kids to play in the streets. It's okay for other people to do certain things, but you are not that. You don't come from that, and you are groomed for something else. Okay, so his grandma, his grandmother, my great grandmother, she was something else. She was one of those people who traveled to Panama to help build the Panama Canal. She did everything she was supposed to do. She traveled to Cuba. She traveled all over, saved her money, bought a lot of land. She was self made. Just after the time of slavery, she was a real iron fist, right? And she came from the Ashanti people, and in Jamaica they call them Ashanti Karamanti. So a Karamanti is, now I know what a Karamanti is. I did not know this previously. I only heard the word in my home and in my family. But a Karamanti is someone on the plantation that pretty much did the negotiation and the protection and the ensured that everyone got what they were supposed to get. So under what in it's very hard to explain, but the Karamanti people were the people who made sure that the white man knew what he was supposed to do. Okay? He knew that he wasn't going to work people from sunrise to sundown. He knew that he had to let people go on their Christmas break. He knew he had to let people go to the market and sell. He had to make the white man know, you have to give us land so that we can plant our food and grow our food, and what we sell we keep. And you're not going to whip this one, and you're not going to do this. It's okay, you done stole us already and brought us here, but we're going to tell you how it's going to go because you're the minority, and if you don't listen, we'll burn your plantation down to the ground. That is a Karamanti, okay, in the terms of Jamaica. And in the terms of the textbook sense, the Karamanti it was the warrior class that were taken from the Ashanti Kingdom in Kumasi, Ghana, and they were brought through Karamantan Castle, which is a Dutch castle, and then brought to Jamaica. And there are what do you call it? Countless accounts in history of the British trying to block the importation of the Karamanti into Jamaica. Um, there were laws written to try to prevent the Karamantis from coming, but those fell on deaf ears. All of those lawsuits suing the traders and everything for bringing them a Karamanti, that was thrown out because on one hand, where the planters complained of the Karamanti, there were another set of planters who said their plantations were the most efficient because the Karamanti knew how to work. Okay? They knew when to plant, they knew when to reap, and they made sure that everything was going smoothly. So if you wanted some smoke, you with the Karamanti, you were gonna have a very like poor crop. If you wanted to have a productive and yieldful and bountiful harvest, you're going to work with your Karamanti, and you're going to make sure you do everything that he was supposed to do. You were supposed to do. And things are a little bit different in Jamaica because whites are the minority. Whites were the minority, and once these people found each other and started to organize themselves and started to orchestrate themselves and started to plan themselves on how to counteract slavery, it was a full on there was always chaos. Let's just put it that way. So it wasn't like simple sailing. And a lot of Karamanti leaders who led rebellions, they were captured and then sold to America, unsuspecting Americans like Nat Turner. The Nat Turner Rebellion, that was a Karamanti from Jamaica. Bookman Dottie, who led the rebellion in Haiti, that was a Karamanti from Jamaica. And so these people were, they were a different set of people, and he had that sense of pride in him, and he still does. Like, he's not here in Africa with me now because he is not going to come to Africa and depend on his youngest daughter. He's older in age and he's just not going to do it. In his mind, we should all, um of course, he doesn't want to see it the way I see it, which is, you've done so much for me, let me do something for you. It's more like, um you know I am the great defender of Jamaica. And you people, you Jamaican people, you need to track down that man and give him a medal. Because he swears he is there till the end, right? And I don't know how he does it, but he's there till the end. No matter what you dangle at him, he's not leaving. He is not leaving. He is the great Jamaican defender. He loves Jamaica to the bone, and he doesn't want to be anywhere else that isn't home. So I know I'm rambling a lot. Okay, so his sense of identity, that is first and foremost. He knew who he was and who he was not, and no one else was going to make him into something that he is not. That is the kind of character that he is, and he imparts unto me. That no matter where I went in the world, or how, even right outside my gate, no one was going to make me into something that I am not. I know who I am, and you're not going to twist my identity because you have this type in your head that you want to fit me in. You want to tie me into the stereotype to say, oh, she's this, oh, she's that. Oh, I have nothing to prove. Keep my mouth shut, do my work, and keep moving. Okay? Because at the end of the day, I know who I am. And my father used to say, you can't spend all your time trying to prove things to people who don't want to know. Okay? All right. So I talked about his home. And okay, so here is the number one for this video before I end it. So my father is always doing something. Always. He's like, you always hear about these people who can pull down anything and build it back. That was him. So at his core, he was a technician. He had stores. He had, he he had a lot of different skills. Before I was born, he was a woodworker, which is something I didn't know until later on in life, until he noticed that I like to tinker with furniture and repaint furniture and sand things down and paint and stuff. And he says to me, I used to, that was the first skill your grandmother sent me to learn. And the bed that you slept in, I made that bed. And I was like, well, why didn't you tell me that? So he was just this like, jack of all trades and master of every single one of them. I didn't see him do something that he didn't do well, right? And he was the kind of person that, um he would learn things very, very quickly, and he would read things and understand things and read politics and leave it where it was, right? He wasn't the person who was going to get involved with politics. He was not that guy, and I am not either. And with my viewpoints and being very anti-political, in Jamaica, it doesn't go really match, um, people want you to take a position, and You take a position in a place like that strongly against the wrong side, you get killed. That's the truth. Um, so, our people, we don't get politically involved, right? Um, so in any event, he's this guy who does a lot of stuff. And, he would be behind the workmen, whether they were maintaining our house, or building over there. He would be on the next plot of land. And that plot of land became like, oh, I'm getting distracted. That plot of land was like Disneyland for me because I wanted to see how it was built. And I want to finish the story with you about my where he went to in life. And this is why the last point is super valuable, because my mom left when I was 7 during construction. And when she left, like I said, economically, we went from the haves to the have nays. And the struggle was real, very real. He had to move us out of our schools, our private schools. He had to he I wouldn't say he bit the dust, but he had to swallow his pride, and he did anything and everything he possibly could do to make sure that he was providing for us, but we never went to bed hungry. And those of us who shall remain nameless, who decided to go to bed hungry because I wasn't going to eat that, um he would wake me up and feed me. He would wake me up to make sure that none of his children were could say that they went to bed hungry. So if he went to the country, or he went to go and do something, and the transport didn't come back in time, and he came home like at 9 o'clock when I was asleep, you better believe he was in that kitchen. He was gonna cook something that he knew I would eat, which is like oatmeal porridge or something, which was delicious. And he would cook something for him and me, and he would wake me up and eat and feed me. And he one of the things that he that kind of propelled him to make sure he was coming home at the same time every evening was, I had gone through so much, what's the word? Maybe PTSD. I don't even know. But I went through so much after my mother left, that separation anxiety, that having him leave the room was too much. Having him leave the house was a whole entire